if you can launch the registration. Yes, thank you. Okay, so hello to everyone. Thanks a lot to have joined this webcast. This is the second webcast in our web series around how blockchain can foster reliable and sustainable supply chains. So it's a series of 5 webcasts. Last week, we talked about modern supply chain pain points and the blockchain attributes that can solve that can help to solve the supply chain pain points. And the other webcasts, starting now, will each focus on one specific use case. So today we'll talk about product traceability. Next week, we will focus around transparency and accountability between supply chain actors. And then around the peer-to-peer process, procure-to-pay process automation. And we just had it the last one around the problematic of how to secure and guarantee the integrity of IoT devices. So let's welcome our speakers today and hand over to you, Jean-Baptiste.
Hey, hi everyone. I hope everyone's doing good on this quite difficult time. Let's be honest. I'm very happy to talk with you guys today. As Adrien would say, just said, it's going to be a 30 minutes webinar, not too long, I hope, and you can have your coffee with it. So it's going to be I'm working for Capgemini Invent, and I'm leading the blockchain effort. We're going to have Lana, who's joining us from AWS, who's going to talk about a specific use case, very interesting use case they've been running with a corporate. And then we're going to have Adil, who's working as well as a blockchain expert, cybersecurity expert inside our blockchain team. So hope you like the content that's going to be. And again, it's not a movie, right? So we're gonna try to be as fast but as interesting as possible, and just give us sometimes at the end of the discussions to have some questions and answers, because at the end of the day, this is what does matter, right? So what are we going to do during those 30 minutes together? Again, we're going to have like around 10 minutes around product traceability. What are the drivers? Why is it important even more now than ever? And see how blockchain can or cannot help the pain points that the supply chain management ecosystem is facing today. And then we're going to have a talk with AWS, who's going to present us the case we've done with Nestle, specifically regarding food traceability. Okay. Move to the next slide. So regarding supply chain management, right? I guess I don't think we have only like French attendees at the moment on the call. So I guess the situation is as complicated and as global as in France for everyone regarding the virus. I guess it's just adding another pain points to the table, right? Because when we talk in traceability in 2020, there's a couple of drivers which lead us to this situation at today, that are big influences on whether the supply chain management needs to change or need to adapt to certain demands, right? I guess the first one is regarding the customers, right? And I guess we are all corporate workers and consumers when you leave your office at the end of the day, right? And as a customers in 2020, what you want your products to look like is you want to know what you're eating, buying, or wearing. Origin matters, right? Not like a couple of years ago where it was just, I want a t-shirt on my chest. Now you want a t-shirt where you know where it was made. You want a t-shirt which is built in quality. You want to know what product were used to do the t-shirt. You want some label or some certification, right? Because there's the questions of trust, and the relations you're building with the companies which made the t-shirt. As well, you want it to be green, right? The greener, the better, I would say. And on the opposite, for corporates, there's more and more regulation on the product traceability. regarding safety, regarding inventory management, regarding the possibilities for the corporate and to give the regulator a quasi-instant access to its inventory management, where does the product come from, is the certificate up to date, etc. Right? So we have quite a difficult paradigm, right, to answer, which is on one point we have like customer who wants green, good, quality, and traceable, and on the opposite way we have like the regulator who is more and more demanding on the topics, right? So that does create a paradigm which is complicated, added to the COVID and the limitation, or the, let's say, the ecosystem discussions we are now. It's quite a challenging time, but of course interesting discussions to have on supply chain management at the moment. And that leads us to 4 points, right? Point number one, continuous monitoring is no longer an option, meaning to say you should be able to have like clear instant view on your supply chain ecosystem, and not just your part, but the whole part of the attendees, right? Because at the end of the day, as you can see, a product recall can cost $1 billion, and we did estimate there was, like, for example, for food, a 3.5 food recall cost in the US a couple of years ago. Second point is you want to be flexible and agile in your production and logistics. Nothing new on the sun on these topics, but again, it's a question on how fast am I to change my production, and we see that with the COVID. Like companies which were not like mass produced company, we did change to mass produce in just like a click in a couple of days. And you want to do it the same way when you have a problem on your logistic. We've seen that in France a couple of I think months ago regarding the milk issue we had. Third point, and which is kind of linked to the customer's expectation we were looking at, especially if you're in a business where you have a premium on the, let's say, the brand image, and maybe a luxury part or premium part you have on your products, like for example if you're dealing with luxury and stuff like that. Visibility and transparency is required regarding the counterfeit market, with like a growing and growing pain for the corporates, especially those dealing in the luxury part. And fourth is the quality, right? Quality, quantity, as I was saying. Again, it's no longer a question of putting food on your mouth, or putting a shirt on your chest, or driving an engine to go from point A to point B. There's a whole new relation which is built from the customer to the product, and that leads to some, let's say, additional services you're now in need to provide to your customers at the same price, at a fuller speed, etc., etc. Next slide.
So when we look at the supply chain today, the traditional supply chain, we find out the usual suspects: the plurality of actors, lack of transparency, latencies, regulatory complaints. These topics have been addressed during the first web series. I'll deep dive in the lack of traceability part. So basically, if an organization wants to reach a full supply chain traceability, it needs to work on the product trail to ensure all actors of this chain involved in this chain contribute with the piece of information they possess. It means that all actors are gathering to produce a shared fruit of the life cycle. This route should also be gathered at one place, easily accessible to all actors, and ideally serve the emergence of new business models and the improvement of current internal processes. Having said that, just a quick reminder about blockchains. It's distributed ledgers shared by different actors in which peer-to-peer transactions are immutable and certified with highly available by design. When we combine these properties to smart contracts, which are piece of code that execute automatically once a predefined internal or external condition is met, we find a new range of automation opportunities for the supply chain automation. And so blockchain can be perceived as a serious candidate and technology to explore when it comes to supply chain traceability. And concretely, if we want to see how does it look like in real life, uh, well, if we consider a supply chain more or less complex than the one we are sharing with you today, the first classification is among actors. We have active actors, the ones that will generate, collect, provide the data from the supplier to the retailer, including the transporter, OEM, and the warehouses. And we have the passive ones, the ones that will only have the read access to the blockchain. It would be the regulators, the bank, the insurer, or the client. Throughout the product lifecycle, information must be collected through what we call here the information acquisition systems. So it's not blockchain. It can be sensors, IoT, legacy systems and applications, oracles, etc. And those systems must communicate with the blockchain we are putting in place. So we need this layer between them, the API management layer, or the classic system integration. And we must keep in mind that blockchain only ensures immutability and availability of the data stored within it. It means that it doesn't actually prove the veracity of the data itself. So there is more work needed outside the blockchain or inside to implement control mechanisms to check the consistency of the entry data and detect anomalies. The obvious target here is to reduce manual processing and errors by combining blockchains with other technologies at the acquisition level system. And so the idea is we should keep in mind that blockchain alone won't solve the supply chain traceability issues, but combined with other technologies, we can create powerful bundles. And by doing so, we should always treat this bundle as a whole and not only the blockchain part. As far as blockchain is concerned, it is considered as safe and provides high level of security, but it becomes vulnerable through its ecosystem. So if we tamper with the data at the acquisition layer, it can lead to what we commonly call garbage in, garbage out, and then make our use case useless or flows. Back to you, Jean-Baptiste, for maybe some examples, concrete examples of implementations in the market.
Yes, thank you, Adil. So again, regarding the example of traceability, I've talked about a couple of examples in the introduction. There's everything related to food industry, and WS is going to talk about it in a couple of minutes regarding Nestle. You have other initiatives that you're probably aware of regarding Carrefour, regarding Walmart. There's a lot of other initiatives regarding food, again, due to the high risk, high demand of their customer expectation in 2020. There's everything relating to container logistics. Again, nothing new on the container logistic tracking, right? I guess the whole of you are already doing this via IoT sensor, RFID, and stuff like that. The question is tracking and storing and tampering the data through a blockchain infrastructure. So on this part, it would be like blockchain more like as an infrastructure than blockchain used directly on the container or whatever it is, right? Third point is regarding luxury. I've talked about it a bit. There's the Aura initiative with LVMH and other customers, which is basically how to deal with authenticity, origin of the raw matters, guarantee, ethical, all the usual suspect I was mentioning in the introduction. And the fourth one is regarding automobile. There's some initiative as well in France. You have the Mobi consortium. There's a lot of different activities on the automobile and traceability part, especially regarding the parts of the cars and how do I deal with my complex ecosystem. So the key message here is it's not like as some other part of the blockchain, an FS heavy sector initiatives. It touches all the different sectors. Move on to last slide, please. So, not to make it another blockchain presentation. Again, the whole problem is it's a fun time to play with the tool. It's a fun time to try, but how do I pass my POC wall of the death, right? So that's still what I would say it was still like the big concern on the last 2 years regarding blockchain at general level. With only like 90% of initiative being POCs. What we see now is there's a huge transformation on POC versus at scale in the last 18 months, right? At the end of the day, at global level, you have like more than 25 or 30 consortium which are running full speed at scale on the blockchain topic. What is the issue, right? You know the usual suspect about what is the issue on the POC side. The problem is the use case, because at the end of the day, if you remember, the original use case of blockchain is Bitcoin, right? So there was a use case originally that does work. Is there others? Does it work, right? And what is the ROE? Second point is regulatory. Again, blockchain is I deal with my IT world. How do I reconcile with my real world, right? And the regulation is still like working on it at the moment. Third point is how do I build my ecosystem, right? How do I have my minimum viable ecosystem, if we want to call it MVE, right? At the end of the day, it's already difficult to do a project for yourself. How difficult it is to do it with 5 of your other peers, which may be even competitors, right? And the fourth point is techno, right? We've talked a bit about IT with Ideal. It's usually a part which is slightly not enoughly deeply studied when we're doing POCs and studies and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, again, blockchain it's a middleware, right? It's a platform. So at the end of the day, it doesn't work alone. It needs to be connected. It needs to be secured. And again, when you're doing like a big IT project for one corporate, it's already a challenge. When you have like 5 IT system with different requirements, different angle, different IT choices which have been made, connecting the 5 or the 10 or the 20, it's for sure a big work. Then I think that's it for the, let's say, the introduction on blockchain traceability and supply chain management issues. I'll lead it to my colleague Lana, who's going to talk to you about a real life example with Nestle. I need you, Lana.
Great. Thank you so much. I think this was a really great overview, and thank you guys for hosting us and letting us talk a little bit more about how we've implemented blockchain solutions and our view on blockchain in general. We can go to the next slide. So the way we design products and approach solutions on behalf of our customers is by this approach we call working backwards. So as we started looking at blockchain solutions and blockchain in general a few years back, we really wanted to pay attention to the types of use cases our customers are using this technology for and understand how we can best serve them. So because of that, we've realized that we're seeing two distinct types of use cases within our customers. So the first one is mostly about ledgers with centralized trust. So here in these use cases, we do have a need for cryptographic verification and tracing, but essentially the entire chain, supply chain, or the use case is ran by a single organization. And there's some applicability there in use cases such as DMV, which we've worked with a few of them in the past. Let's say HR and payroll, manufacturing, and other systems of record that are, again, centrally managed, but do rely on verification of the system of record. So because of that, we've launched a product called Amazon Quantum Ledger Database that really speaks to some of the attributes that are typically found in blockchain, such as append-only immutable journal store that provides cryptographic verifiability of all of the entries and changes made to data through its life cycle. It also has a current state and index history, but again, really speaks to a central management of all of the data within a platform. But what I really want to talk about is the second set of use cases. When we're working with the other set of customers, we're really focused on use cases that do require decentralization of transactions. So typically these are your more complex supply chains, so especially international supply chains. A lot of use cases in financial sectors. So this would be your peer-to-peer payments, mortgage lenders, letters of credit and trade finance, and also streamlining retail operations for customer rewards and, let's say, inventory management. Because of this, we've launched a different product called Amazon Managed Blockchain. So essentially, it's an easier way for customers to spin up some of the more popular frameworks in enterprise space. So this would be Hyperledger Fabric was Ethereum, which is soon to come. So this solution essentially allows you to automate onboarding members to your blockchain network, to create the network itself, setting some of the voting policies that are alleviating some of the friction, cost, and just some of the cumbersome processes of maintaining a live network. So today we wanted to talk about an example of using these technologies, which is Nestle. Nestle is a well-known company. So it is present in over 190 countries and has over 300,000 employees worldwide. And I myself am having a cup of coffee to get in the mood and be more authentic about this process. So what we were what we're working with Nestle on is providing a grain to coffee traceability for their single origin coffees. Next slide. When we're looking at a cup of coffee, so what would a cup of coffee tell us? And this is something that Nestle folks told us. So number one thing is that we really wanted to deliver a superior taste. So which is why this project that we worked with Nestle on really focus on superior quality and traceability of the product, also rewarding best practices. So this is best practices throughout the supply chain. So from origin, so this is your farming, to grading, to packaging, and also providing a personalized experience to the end users or to your consumers, and also to promote collaboration between all of these participants to create new brands going forward. Next slide. So because of this, the business opportunity has been pretty clear. So we have the second highest commodity traded after oil, and we really need to understand how it's produced, how it's resold, and how it's consumed by customers or end users. And as we've been noticing, customer behavior has been changing. So we really do care about what we're consuming, whether it's ethically sourced, and how is the product, let's say, processed along the way. So not only is this beneficial to enterprises themselves or to larger companies in, let's say, facilitating recalls or attesting to the quality of their product, but it's also something that's really important for our end users or consumers. So for example, by scanning a certain barcode, I can tell, for example, what plantation type the coffee has been grown on, what processing method was used, what grade this coffee is, and freshness. I don't know if this is a common fact, but I just found out that coffee is best consumed within 6 weeks of production. So based on that and some of the real-time metrics, so for example, seasonality of these products, it's really important to have provenance of this good, in this case of this perishable good. So there is really value in established provenance and traceability. And this also, one of the goals of the project was to showcase best-in-class practices from farming through packaging and resale. Slide. So some of the data collaboration challenges. So we've kind of talked at the high level about the use case itself, but let's dig in deeper. What our customers were finding that it's pretty easy to source some of the metadata within some of your closer distributors and roasters. So let's say here in this diagram, we have a blue box that kind of shows you where it's easier to get data for real-time planning, for provisioning supplies and demands. But once we start branching out and going a couple of levels or nodes deeper into supply chain, that data is really difficult to come by. So not only we're talking about farmers, we're also talking about packaging suppliers, which could be multiple of them, and also understanding retailers and customer behavior going forward. So this is the system that we've built out, and I'm really excited to kind of show you what it looks like from the infrastructure level, what it all looks like together assembled. Another interesting approach that Nestle took is that they really took a brand first approach. So they've created a chain of origin brand, which we will send some links, or there will be available at the last slide for you to be able to actually interact with the site and perhaps enjoy a nice cup of coffee. So the approach they took here is they created this chain of origin brand that has been treated like a startup. So the team has been working, the Nestle team has been working with our AWS teams and our Amazon managed blockchain team on really define what this platform would look like and the experience would look like from the ground up. So this work, the initial POC has been already completed and shipped last year. So some of the main points that were really important and paramount to creating the solution is personalization. So we wanted to use technology to provide a fully trackable one-to-one personalized journey from a farmer to a consumer. Collaboration was really important. So here we wanted to use data as a collaboration method to really deliver this artisan coffee that talks to its provenance. So providing value points and metadata such as, let's say, roasters, grade, the exact plantation where the beans were grown, are really speaking to this collaboration and providing this cohesive picture to the customers. Freshness is clearly paramount to any perishable goods, but then also creating some of the more interesting business models around this. So by having all of this real-time data readily available, you can start launching services such as subscription, let's say to your favorite producer, and giving customers better control over quality and user experience. Next slide. So from this perspective, how did AWS solve for Nestle's challenges? So here we really wanted to focus on a real-time data collaboration that allow us to deliver premium coffee experience by connecting consumers and artisanship of coffee. So we have multiple nodes on this network, if you're seeing. So I would treat the top row as the nodes on the network. So we have a farmer, we have a that would be, let's say, shipping beans to a grading facility. Grading facility acts almost like a validator in this use case. So here we are testing to the quality and the grade of the beans provider. Then we might have brokers, roasters, and packaging facility. Each one of them would be adding their own metadata, and each one of them would be able to validate members or validation of other nodes on the network. So this really allows us for a more cohesive experience. Next slide. When we're talking about the implementation itself, it was really important also to design for two different user types. So here we do have e-commerce for consumers. As we see, we have two entry points to this platform. So the first one is really tailored to the consumers that would want to have all of this information about the product they're purchasing. And the second one is for business partners. And some of the farmers might not have the most sophisticated ways to interact with the systems, or frankly, not be that interested in tinkering with some of the tech toys that folks like myself are pretty excited about. So because of that, Nestle built out specific portals to be able to log in into the platform for consumers and business partners. As you can imagine, there is some latency issues. So because of that, the team had to, or we're excited about, to use services like CloudFront to allow to fetch content closer to the users to provide some of this customized experience for both consumers and partners. And later on, log into the chain of origin app. So here, as you can see, we have a chain of origin application that is paired or coupled with the blockchain private network itself. Another really great thing about enterprise blockchain that you can really tightly control who and how interacts with all of the nodes on the network. And you can do this through the privacy controls that are native to Hyperledger Fabric, which this architecture is based on, by providing channels, let's say for more sensitive communication, and also by using cryptography, key management, and certificate management to attest that all of the nodes that are trading on this network are allowed to do so. Next slide. So if you wanted to actually interact with the demo, please go ahead and scan this QR code, or we are happy to send the link afterwards to just really explore some of the data that you're able to source from this demo, to really look into all of the metadata that goes along with a purchase, let's say, of a specific coffee type, and understand a little bit more of how we're bringing these solutions to markets with customers like Nestle. If you have any other questions, we're able to answer those in chat and Q&A. And also you have my contact information and also a link to the to Amazon Managed Blockchain website that allows you to dig in a little bit deeper into some of these use cases. I think I went over by a couple of minutes. I apologize, but thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot, Lana. We do have already some question through the Q&A panel. One about the potential acceleration of blockchain implementation around the supply chain sectors due to the COVID crisis we are facing right now. I don't know if you I started to push first answer on the Q&A panel, but if you want to build up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. More than happy to address those in the chat. And quickly, I think we will have to design new systems that work for everyone. So as we can already tell that this real-time data, as we've mentioned in the case of Nestle, with seasonality of coffee, right? So for planning, it makes it difficult. Now we have to respond to different demands a lot faster in the face of some of the larger events. So having this traceability and ability to look in 2-3 layers down into your supply chain and act on that, anticipating any issues or shortages, is going to become increasingly more important going forward.
And what I can add to regarding the COVID is basically, I think there's a questions of the traceability of the goods, especially if you look at the masks, for example, you see how many, let's say, small scandal there was on whatever country or whatever corporate is stealing mask or buying mask for in the floor of the airport, twice the time to get mask for him and stuff like that. I can see a world where the government would be intended to put in place a blockchain in order to track and trace everything related to first or very vital items such as masks in order to avoid what did happen during the first weeks of the COVID. I think it's definitely something that we can have a talk with the government regarding, hey, you have some masks which are being stole, whatever, because you're missing the point. This is too vital. You can work with some corporates in order to do that, but maybe it should be like let's say an hybrid private public blockchain which can be put in place in order to track those stuff. So I already can see some scenarios here.
Mainly, COVID won't be the one that will push blockchain business. However, there are lessons learned from this crisis globally. There are situations where we see that blockchain could have helped some organization to restructure, to adapt to the situation. And mainly post-crisis world will be what were our mistakes, where did we lack some automation, some collaboration, and how do we work this out in order to avoid the same impact in further crisis.
Thank you. There is also a question around the complementarity technologies that can ensure validity at the acquisition level. So a detailed answer of that, I think, will be addressed in the last webcast of the series around the question to secure IoT devices. But probably you have also something to complement that.
Maybe Lana, right? On the data acquisition layer.
Data acquisition is a really interesting one. So here we really need to be flexible in understanding, and I've heard before garbage in, garbage out from one of the panelists. So I think that kind of brings you to the point. Number one, if we do need really high guarantees of data integrity, then we're using technologies such as IoT to really be able to have sensor readings, let's say, even satellites readings, to make sure that we have the right GPS location, for example, in the case of farming, telemetry readings for, let's say, making sure that at no point the temperature has dropped on, well, lettuce, let's say it's being transported and that it's still in the consumable condition. So IoT is a very important one. Also, at the same time, we need to think about usability. And I really like what Nestle did here is by providing a little bit more easier experience for farmers to be able to upload data on the beans that they are sending to grading facilities. So here it just really depends on the tech level of your producers, but if you do need to make sure that the data is highly reliable, then IoT is a really great complement to blockchain solutions.
Thank you. And the last question before closing this webcast around the environmental impact of data and data storage and energy needed to keep blockchain ledger up and running.
So I can get started on that one. So I think from that perspective, again, we're really need to be thinking about validation and what is necessary. So the way we view consensus mechanisms or anything that is traditionally more energy consuming is by having a sliding scale between decentralization and speed, I would say, in some use cases. So if validity of data is really important, then it might not be a bad idea to use a more stringent consensus algorithm or a validation procedure. If it's not, if we have trusted authorities, then we can relax some of those requirements. So the answer on my side would be it depends.
Yeah, I would add to that same questions. I mean, let's not confuse what it is to validate like whatever numbers of Bitcoin transaction and the heavy energy algorithm that needs to run out to in order to process, and a lighter way to approve and to showcase the data on probably a use case like the ones being seen on the Nestle side. But for sure, those green IT topics are then definitely in the mind of a consulting company like Capgemini or a provider like AWS, and it's something that as for your customers regarding supply chain, we have an auto include on green IT topics and energy consumption on those types of projects for sure.
Right, and there's some interesting use cases that we're seeing popping up, especially as we want to reduce dependence, let's say, on fossil fuels, or understand how do we provide for electric vehicle networks better. So from that perspective, we are seeing some tokenization and trading of energy as assets between, let's say, solar batteries and EVs. So understanding how to manage loads are very interesting use cases popping up if we're talking about utilities and energy, even outside of blockchain. So lots of exciting stuff there.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you, Jean-Baptiste and Adil. Thanks for all the attendees. It's the end of the webcast. We switch a little bit out of the 30-minute original slot, but most of the attendees are still there, so it's a good sign. Thanks a lot, and happy to welcome you again next week around the actors' transparency and accountability on supply chain. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.